Welcome to Narcissist Apocalypse, everyone. I am Brandon Chadwick, and today we will be doing a debrief on Elly's story, giving you the key takeaways of Elly's story. And before we go into those key takeaways, for those of you who have not listened to Elly's story yet, here is a summary of her story. So Elly grew up in a very unsafe and dysfunctional family. Her mother was emotionally abusive and made her feel as though nothing she ever did was good enough. And her father was an abusive alcoholic. And as the oldest child, she learned to monitor danger, care for her siblings, and really stay quiet as a way to survive. She became a perfectionist who really excelled at school, while really struggling with shame and low self-worth and also an eating disorder. And as an adult, Elly became a nurse and built a life filled with running and yoga, going to the beach, and she was doing work that she loved. And more than anything, she wanted to feel loved and have someone to be proud of her. She never had that as a child. And then she met her future husband while they were working in an emergency room. He appeared quiet, competent, and just different from the men that she had dated. But this person was mirroring her interests and created the impression that they just shared the same values and the same lifestyle. And the relationship really moved quickly. And once Elly moved in, the person that she thought she knew just disappeared completely. His alcohol use became severe. And then his family comes in here and minimizes his drinking, defends his behavior, and really expects Elly just to stay silent. And she became isolated while his relatives mocked her, they excluded her, and treated her as if she was the problem whenever she was asking for help. And later, Elly does discover that her husband has been unfaithful throughout their relationship, including having a relationship with his brother's wife. And then the abuse eventually escalates as well once they are married. And Elly's husband repeatedly told her that she was crazy, that she was too emotional, and just living in a different reality. So this person is trying to distort her reality. And when Elly discovered evidence of the affair while 7 months pregnant, he chased her upstairs, broke down the bedroom door, and attacked her while she was trying to shield her stomach. And then he later slammed her into walls. He blocked doorways so she could not leave the home, raised his fist toward her to make her flinch, threatened her with guns, and told her that he would kill her or break every bone in her body. And Elly remained for a very long time. She was afraid of what would happen to her children if the children were left with the abuser, alone with this abuser for a period of time. And eventually this violence that is going on reaches a certain point where Elly believed that her children might watch her die. So she begins here to eventually plan her escape. A doctor who knew about the danger gave her enough money for a security deposit, rent, and a moving truck. And Elly filed for divorce, got a protection order, then moved with her children into a temporary housing situation before finding a rental home. And Elly expected that the legal system was there to protect her, but the divorce opened just years of legal abuse and post-separation abuse. And Elly's ex here used lawyers, court proceedings, staged messages, and the children to really exert control over Elly. Her sons would return from visits with the dad with bruises, injuries, a lot of behavior changes. And this really made Elly scared. She was scared for their safety, and she spent more than $100,000 trying to protect these children through the courts. And, the systems here were failing her in a huge way, and she just continued fighting for them, built a safer home for her children while this was going on. And it really took Elly around 4 years to really come out of the survival mode and fully understanding what had actually happened to her. And she really wanted to share her story. She wanted to let all the secrets out of the bag and really take control of her life back. So that was a summary of Elly's story. And now we are going to do the key takeaways. And key takeaway number 1, I have written down here: learning to function around unstable people. Kind partners equals boring. chaos equals familiar. So Elly grew up around alcoholism, around emotional abuse, around a dad that was driving dangerously, that mocked her for being scared. She was worrying about her parents all the time, worrying if they were going to be okay. She was calming down her brother. And then as an adult, Elly describes kind partners as feeling boring. And that's just her nervous system. She had learned to associate emotional intensity with being connected to people. So calm relationships here felt very unfamiliar to her. Calmness was foreign to her. But chaos was really recognizable to Elly. So when Elly said that her ex felt like home, she was really describing familiarity. She was recognizing emotional patterns that were going on in her body that she had lived with before, even though she didn't have a language to understand what was actually going on. And it's true that there are many survivors out there that have grown up in chaos. So it makes living in chaos easier to deal with at first because you know how to maneuver within it. It's a role you know well. You know, you could be someone who's taken on a caretaking role like Elly did. So when you're in that role, you actually do know how to function. In some ways, it is a kind, I'm not going to say calming, but it's a way that you know how to operate. And when something like that isn't there, when you're in a relationship where Elly feels like it's boring, it's because you don't know what to do. You don't know what to do with calmness. And there's a lot of you out there who have gone through this, are going through this, who understand this dynamic and how chaos, you know, can feel familiar and that, oh, I can deal with this, I can handle this. Well, people who never grew up in that way, they can't deal with it right off the bat. They don't know how, but for a lot of us out there, we know exactly what to do and how to fill a role within that system. And as I mentioned before, this will be key takeaway number 2. Caretaking became Elly's role. So caretaking was taught to Elly at a very, very young age. She learned at a young age that love requires a person to rescue others who refuse to take responsibility for themselves. And Elly believed that everyone had goodness inside them and that sometimes this goodness needed to be coaxed out of them. And that belief kept her working harder whenever someone else was behaving badly or behave even worse. So Elly was trying to help her husband stop drinking. She tried to find resources. She tried to get his family involved. She attempted to communicate more clearly in hopes that all of this would get through to him. But Elly's husband just continued to hurt her and the family. The more irresponsible he became, the more responsible he had to become. She was becoming the caretaker. It was a role she always knew. Elly's ability to care for others was her strength, and she became a full-time crisis manager in this relationship. And her husband exploited that strength by making her responsible for problems that he continued to create. And key takeaway number 3 is addiction does not excuse abuse. So addiction played a major role in Elly's story. Her husband regularly became severely drunk. He drove while impaired, passed out, neglected his children, harmed children, but he was still able to maintain this professional image at work. He really presented himself differently around different people. He selected when to humiliate Elly in public and when to save the worst behavior for behind closed doors as well. He used relatives, lawyers, and his children to maintain power even after this relationship is ending. So all of these actions here require awareness. So I just want to point that out. There's an awareness that is needed here. So the addiction at that point can get separated from everything that is going on. Alcohol did not force this person to raise his fist and stop it inches from Elly's face so he could just watch her flinch and be scared. Alcohol did not force him to block exits, threaten to break every bone in her body, hurt her, push her up against walls. Alcohol did not do that. Abuse does that. Coercive control does that. Alcohol didn't make this person do those things. We know that he has awareness for all of these other things, and you do too, whoever is dealing with someone who's an addict and also an abuser. He had awareness. He was calculated when he did things. Yes, they're an addict, but they are also an abuser, in a myriad of different ways. And a lot of you are dealing with someone who you're saying is an addict. They could be an alcoholic or a drug addict, and they're also an abuser. And you may be excusing these things away to the addiction, but addiction does not excuse away abuse. So if you're dealing with this, you are being abused, and your partner who is an addict is an abuser. And next on our list is intimidation is violence. And Elly here describes intimidation as one of her ex-husband's favorite tactics. He would raise his fist, draw it back, punch toward her face. He would stop just before making contact. Then he would laugh because she flinched. Even if he didn't hit her, it's still a hit. It's still violence. It was intended to show that he could hit her at any moment and instill that fear in her. Future consequences were instilled in here. Maybe next time I will do this, is what that intimidation is doing. The entire purpose was to make Elly believe that the contact could happen at any moment. Intimidation is training you, the body, to live in anticipation of the actual physical hit. So a survivor starts responding with this possibility that violence might occur. The abuser here wanted Elly to know that he could hurt her whenever he chose. So he blocked the front door when she tried to leave. When she tried to move toward another exit, he blocked that one too. He's possessing guns. And the message is violence can happen at any time. I am in control. So with intimidation, it is violence to me. It is physical violence to me, even though they might not touch you. The message is getting across to you that this can happen at any time, whenever I want, whenever I choose. And that is violence. To me, it's physical violence, and it is coercive control, and it's trying to keep you in fear from leaving, getting help, and keeps you staying in line. And it's very scary and dangerous. And for those of you who are going through this, my heart goes out to all of you. And then up next, we have a key takeaway where silence can be survival. And with Elly here, there's a big story. When she was pregnant, her husband attacked her. A fire alarm goes off inside the house. It continued until the firefighters arrived. Help was right there for Elly, and one of the firefighters was alone with Elly, and yet Elly still could not tell him what had happened. Elly had been told repeatedly that she was crazy, had her fears being minimized by her husband and her husband's family, a family she would go to for help but would never get it. And because of that, going to the family and that being their response, she learned that speaking could have retaliation because the husband retaliates after. And these people are also minimizing everything that she just told them or just refuse to believe her. So now she feels that it's possible that these firefighters might not believe her, that they might minimize what's going on, and there could be retaliation after. So when the firefighters are there, Elly thought, what is the risk if nothing happens here? If they doubt me? What are the consequences after they leave? And now I'm alone with my abuser again. She has to calculate all of this. And in that calculation, silence to her made her safer. Not speaking made her safer. So a person living under coercive control does not experience speaking out as just a simple path to actual safety. Disclosure here can lead to retaliation, disbelief, consequences, eventually maybe custody consequences, or just an increase in violence. And Elly's silence in this situation here just really shows how this abuse had affected her ability to trust her own reality and to trust the systems around her, and also the fear and the consequences if these people didn't believe her, didn't happen, and she was just left alone with the abuser. And so silence here was the safest thing to do, and it was a survival mode for her and for many of you out there as well. And then the next thing on our list is protecting children became the reason to stay and the reason to leave. And Elly's children were really big or central in every decision that she made. She remained partly because she was terrified of what could happen if the children were left alone with the father. He was physically violent, unpredictable. So Elly believed that her presence in the children's lives gave them more protection, that being a reason for staying. Leaving created a different danger. Separation meant the possibility here of just unsupervised parenting time. And this is just a terrible bind to be in. Either you're going to be abused at home and you're going to be taking the brunt of it, but the children are still going to be abused, but at least you can try and protect them in some way. Or if they leave and are with their ex and the abuser by themselves, you can't see what's going on there, and it's harder to protect them when you're not there. So remaining at home exposes the children to abuse, and leaving can mean sending the children back into the same environment with no protective parent being there. And Elly, like many of you, understands both of these dangers. Both of them are terrible decisions that you have to make. But she knew that staying could cost her her life. And she also knew that the family court system might grant the abuser too many rights as well. She knew the reality of these situations. And this type of reality can delay leaving because the survivor is just trying to choose between two unsafe outcomes. So Elly just wanted her children to have a stable home. And she wanted to create that stability from inside a household where stability was just impossible. But eventually, the threat here becomes really clear. If she does stay, her children might watch her actually die. And eventually for her, leaving became the only choice because in a way, it gave her really the only chance at safety. Yes, they're at their home with the abusive parent for a part of the time, but then they do have a safe place with her for part of the time as well. So at least there is a chance for safety, and that is eventually the choice that Elly made, and a lot of you will be making as well. And then the next big takeaway from Elly's story are the smear campaigns in court. And these are hurtful, and they're upsetting, and they're re-traumatizing. And her ex was building a legal case before the case even began. And he had spent years telling people that Elly was unstable, and he used those claims to undermine her credibility in court. Sometimes the abusive person understands way before the survivor that witnesses are needed for these situations. So they begin creating a version of events where the survivor is emotional, vindictive, unstable, or just impossible to be with, to be a parent with, how they treat their children. And then when the survivor finally reacts to the years of abuse that is going on, the reactions eventually then can be presented as a confirmation of all of these things that the abuser has been telling other people. So Elly's ex here was doing that. Elly's ex was also using communication strategically. So what he did was he behaved aggressively during exchanges that are very aggressive and very angry. But then on text messages, they might show themselves as being a peaceful co-parent. This person is trying to create fragments of conversation that could be screenshotted without the surrounding context of everything that has been going on. So they can just play the dummy. You know what has happened before these text messages have gone on. So even within the text messages, it can make you sound like you are being the abusive one. So this person is trying to manufacture evidence by provoking the other parent beforehand, in this case, Elly. And this becomes its own form of abuse in post-separation. It can be very debilitating. You're just hoping that someone in the court can really see through the lies that are going on, but you're just being set up. And it can create hopelessness, despair. A lot of those feelings could be happening. There's anger on top of everything. And sometimes an abuser doesn't get away with it, but it's possible that sometimes that they do. It's not out of the realm of possibility. Sometimes you can be set up really well. And a lot of these different feelings are going to be going on, and it's re-traumatizing as well. It's a form of abuse that is going on. It could be an even deeper form of abuse because you're now dealing with children and the safety and protection of those children. And my heart goes out to many of you out there who are dealing with this. And this is just a reminder for you yourself to just start documenting Try to keep everything in text form. Don't speak offline. Don't meet offline. They're going to try to maybe rile you up and have you respond to that in text, making you look bad. Just kind of keep everything in a text form if possible, or just an email form if possible, My Family Wizard, etc., to keep yourself safe and just document. And then the last thing on our list is a big takeaway for people with kids. So this is where the safe parent has to deal with the aftermath of the kids who are visiting the abuser. So with Elly, when her children returned from the father's house, they were dysregulated when they got back. They were angry, frightened, physically aggressive. Elly described her children hitting her, spitting at her, pulling her hair, breaking things, and just repeating some of the really terrible things that the father said and the gestures that the father made. This also can be very re-traumatizing for the abused person, yet the abused person still needs to deal with this aftermath in the healthiest way possible for the kids. It is not an easy thing to do. It's really widely known that the children will behave worse with the parent that they feel safest with. So being the safest parent can mean receiving everything that the child was just unable to express at the abusive parent's home. The child is holding in everything until they get home to the safe parent, where they will collapse. And once they feel safe, the anger, the confusion, all of the physical energy will start to come out. And for Elly and everyone out there who's dealing with this, then you have to do your best to regulate your own nervous system while helping your children regulate theirs. And this is just a big part of the abuse in a huge way. The abusive parent creates this dysregulation, and then the safe parent has to handle the aftermath of everything. It's not fair to me. It's still abuse, not fair at all, but it's the reality of what you are dealing with in the past or right now. And you have to do your best for your children while yourself still being able to regulate as best you can. But the unhealthy abusive parent is putting you in this situation again where this abuse is occurring in your home, in this form. Your children are not bad people. They're just feeling safe with you. You kind of have to remind yourself your children aren't bad. They're just dealing with the best way they can with being or coming back from an abusive household. So those were our big key takeaways from Elly's story. And now there are just two things that I want for Elly going forward. One, I just want Elly to receive care that does not depend on her staying strong. So Elly has spent most of her life being the capable one. She is taking care of siblings, patients, partners, children. She has survived because she's the one that kept getting back up. And I just want her to have people who notice when she is tired or when she is frightened or overwhelmed or scared. And, without her even having to require to reach out, I just want people in her life that are going to reach out to her, make sure that she's doing okay. Create a friend group where people are going to be reaching out to her just to see how she's doing once in a while and ask her these questions of like, how are you doing? How can I support you? This is something big for Elly that I want for her going forward. And then the next thing that I want for her going forward is I just want Elly's voice just to remain strong, because Elly spent years protecting the secrets of the people who had harmed her. And she finally here has gotten to a point where she's saying with power and with strength that she survived domestic abuse, and she's letting everyone know her story. And I just want that truth to just keep growing inside her. Her story is her story. It belongs to her. Speaking doesn't make her responsible for anyone else's reputation. Screw everyone else's reputation. Her voice is the one that matters. And I want her to feel that strength more and more and more. And I want all of that for you as well, whoever is listening to this. And I hope you found this episode educational and enlightening. And if you want to be a guest like Elly was on our Survivor Story episodes, please do go to our website at narcissistapocalypse.com, fill out our guest form, press the submit button, and we'll go from there. Also at our website, we have a support group. So if you need support, join our support group today at narcissistapocalypse.com. And we have a newsletter where you will get a free workbook for every new Survivor Story that we put out. and that is all at narcissistapocalypse.com. And that is it for today's debrief episode. So for myself and Elly, we hope you have a good night.